If you're wanting to buy a house in 2025, here are the things you're going to want to pay attention to. Now, there were a lot of families that wanted to buy a home in 2024 and simply didn't, and this is understandable. When people looked at home prices, interest rates, the cost of insurance in states like California, the Midwest, and even Florida because of the hurricanes, it's simply unaffordable for many families. But when people looked at 2025, everyone's hoping that we're going to have some sort of a break in the housing market. Things are going to become more affordable, and more importantly, that we have some sort of a clear direction as an economy. Now, without getting political, the reality is right now in 2024, when I'm shooting this video, we're dealing with a lot of uncertainty. A lot of people are watching the election. A lot of people want to know, what are the actual housing policies going to be in 2025? What are the tax policies going to be? Am I going to get taxed on things that I'm not being taxed on right now? These are major decisions that are keeping people from making decisions, whether it's buying a home, selling a home, building a home, or developing homes for builders, that you're going to want to keep your eye on. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is the Federal Reserve. Back in September, the Federal Reserve lowered rates for the first time in 18 months, and so many people, when they saw this, because they didn't understand, thought that mortgage rates were going to come down. The fact is, mortgage rates went up. They're not correlated. The thing that will cause mortgage rates to come down will be a weakening economy where we see unemployment continue to go up, if we see inflation continue to be high, and I, for one, don't see those things moving quickly. And so when we look at 2025 and we think about mortgage rates, which is one of the biggest factors for someone that's gonna buy a house next year, I think what you have to be prepared for is that mortgage rates will come down, but it's going to be a slow process over the course of the year. What's crazy about 2024 is, with home prices being where they were at the beginning of the year and mortgage rates being elevated, in most economies and most housing markets, home prices would have come down by a lot. But what happened in most states is home prices went up. At the end of 2024, what we're seeing is that in many states, home prices went up 3 to 7% depending on the state and how busy they were, but home prices did go up. When we look forward to 2025, National Association of Realtors is predicting a 6.9% overall appreciation rate for the year of 2025. And so this is something you're gonna wanna keep your eye on, because most people have been waiting, hoping prices would come down or rates would come down or both. This is going to prove to be a losing proposition in the year 2025. Now let's talk about the election. There are so many people right now that are putting so much emphasis on the election. And listen, I totally get it. It's crazy right now. Like, nobody knows what to expect after the election happens. But here's what you have to look at. Regardless of who gets elected, we're going to see a housing policy on both sides that has to play out, has to get voted on. And at the end of the day, with some of the checks and balances in place and the reality of the fundamentals of our housing market, meaning that we have way more demand than we have supply, I don't expect anything major to happen regardless who gets elected, unless you immediately see some sort of a deregulation where builders start building homes faster than ever, and we start seeing a lot of developments coming up. Now, I will tell you, as a real estate investor myself, that would cause me to have a little bit of short-term pain because values would come down. But in reality, that's what we need. We need to see more inventory so that more of the low to moderate income buyers can actually afford to buy a home. Overall, this would be a really good thing. Even real estate investors who have a portfolio of homes that have a really nice value to them, even if those values went down, investors would step back into the market themselves and pick up properties at new prices with hopefully lower rates and continue to grow their wealth. So what we really need more than ever before is inventory. And I, for one, do not see either presidential party making that happen in 2025. So we're probably gonna have a lot of the same issues we have this year, with hopefully some great ways for them to incentivize first-time buyers to get into homes, making it a little easy for them. Now, I wanna talk to you about the difference between a seller's market and a buyer's market. A buyer's market is where there are way more homes available than there are buyers to buy them. And so they kind of have their pick of the litter. They can look at 10 homes and every seller is gonna say, pick me, pick me. And the way that they get them to pick them is by lowering their price or offering some sort of incentive to get them to buy the property. I remember back in 2012 when there were thousands of foreclosures available nationwide, and these banks were not only paying closing costs, they were doing renovations for buyers that wanted to buy their property. It was really one of the best times in history to buy a home. We have not had a market like that for at least 5 years. It has been a seller's market. A seller's market's just the opposite. This is when you have a lot more buyers than homes available. And so this allows sellers to elevate their price, to really ask for what they want, because if a buyer wants to buy their home, they know there's not a lot of other homes like it, they can name their price. The interesting thing about 2024 is we've had sort of a frozen market. There has been transactions, but they've been the lowest amount of homes sold since 1991. And it's been really hard for buyers to buy homes, but it's also been really hard for sellers to sell their home, because once someone sells their home, they usually have to find another place to live. They have to get a mortgage. They have to borrow a mortgage at today's mortgage rates. And so this is one of the biggest challenges we've had with 2024. But what about 2025? Well, 2025 is going to be a seller's market. It's not going to change, but it's not going to be easy for sellers to sell their home. For one, we will still have elevated prices, and they're expected to go up next year. For two, mortgage rates are going to come down, but they're not going to come down fast. A 0.5% mortgage rate drop, it gets buyers excited, but what we really need to see is a 1 to 2% drop in mortgage rates for buyers to get off the fence. Just to give you some perspective, for every 1% that mortgage rates go down, it will increase a buyer's purchase power by about 10% on the average home in California, which is around $400,000. So we're talking about $40,000 of additional purchase power, which makes a huge difference. This is what we're going to need to see to make a difference for the buyers that are currently watching to actually get into the game and start buying. So when you think about buying a house in 2025, whether you're a first-time buyer or maybe you're a move-up buyer, you have a house you've been wanting to sell to get that bigger home or that property with some acreage, or you're an investor like me and you're trying to find something that cash flows, you are going to have an intelligent approach to buying in this next year's market. And what I mean by that is, if you're an investor, you're going to have to look at the state legislation, and you're going to have to find underutilized income opportunities like building an ADU or converting a detached building to rental income. If you're a first-time buyer, you're gonna have to learn about state bonds, programs, down payment assistance, and some of the incentives that may or may not come out of this presidential election that can help you justify the price of the property and the cost of that mortgage. And if you're a move-up buyer, you're gonna wanna make sure you sell your home at the best time, you take your realtor's advice, and you get that property at the best shape possible so that it stands out in the pack of the other sellers. You're not gonna wanna be greedy, because I've seen so many sellers that put their house on the market, they get an offer, and then 6 to 7 weeks later, they're taking 20% lower than what they could have got the first week, because they were holding out for a better offer. As a seller, you have to understand that the first 2 weeks that your home is on the market is the most important time, and the longer your home sits on the market, the less people are gonna look at it, and it's likely gonna cost you more in the long run. Now, the truth is, nobody knows what's gonna happen in 2025, and anything could happen. But this is what I truly believe we're gonna see next year. I would love to hear your thoughts or questions in the comments below. And if you got anything out of this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, or download this video, and I'll see you next time.